So my name's Hannah Recker. I head the growth marketing team here at Coefficient. It's been awesome getting connected to our users like Tim and starting these playbook sessions. You'll definitely see more of this, as well as Slack community to have async conversations like this in the near future. Victoria is here as well. Victoria, you can introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm the solutions engineer at Coefficient. I support the team in meeting with customers, showing people how to use the Coefficient product. So nice to meet you all.
Awesome. Yeah, so if you have more technical questions along the way, Victoria is here. I will probably not be able to answer those, but I can answer the higher level, like business strategic questions and prompt those things with Tim along the way. So obviously, Tim's here. I'm going to let him introduce himself. But again, would love, before he does that, would love everyone to let us know where you're calling in from in the chat. Share your LinkedIn if you'd like. You can all get connected while we're just getting started. And yeah, we're just excited to have these playbook sessions and honestly just inspire people and show folks how others are leveraging the tool because Coefficient can do many things. It can flex as far as you want it to flex. So it's really cool to have these sessions and show off what our power users like Tim are doing with the tool.
Awesome. Thanks, Hannah. Well, definitely I'll start out with Coefficient is definitely one of my favorite tools. Like, can't even imagine how I don't remember actually how I found you. I think it was probably through the community of like marketing operations or something. And I think you seeded like, hey, you should check out Coefficient. And then I said, holy crap. Like I instantly was able to dive into the tool, get connected in like literally seconds, and then solve some more immediate pain points that I had within just my daily job and duties. And so like kind of leading into that, yeah, my name is Tim. I'm a director of growth and operations at a company called Marvin. We are a AI research repository. We work very well with big enterprise companies. We tout Microsoft, LinkedIn, Mass Mutual. We work across very big companies on that side, but also on the mid-market and smaller scale too as well. Anyone that is conducting research, which could be a UX designer, a product person leading product, or an actual researcher themselves, they're leveraging our product ultimately to help them facilitate the analysis of that and using the power of AI, which, Coefficient I think has done a very important and tactical way of including AI in its own product. I won't get too much into how I've used it, but I've heard some great use cases, and everyone should definitely check out like the ability of using AI within Coefficient because there's definitely some cool stuff that even I'm going to start to dive into that I was seeing you posting about recently. So yeah, that's a bit about my role. My area of expertise, my background has been growth and operations for a little while now. And so it's that middle ground where these two things play in that I think I really kind of fit well into, and where Coefficient I think also fits very well into, right? Bridging this gap between your go-to-market motion, your advertising campaigns if you're in marketing, your sales strategy if you're in sales, right? You need that operational background, and where where we're using Coefficient a lot is to help facilitate a lot of those motions, and not just in end reporting, but like actual operational processes too as well. My favorite quote: "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take." If you don't know who the great one is, that is Wayne Gretzky. I'm a big NHL fan. New Jersey Devils is my team. I've been born and raised in New Jersey. I'm still based out of New Jersey. So, yeah, hockey's my other life, my other passion. So I think it does equate to business in so many ways, right? Especially if you're in the marketing in the startup world, you got to make sure that you're taking the shots, right? If you're not trying new things, not experimenting, not pushing the boundaries, you're never going to make it in the end, right?
Absolutely. I love that you mentioned that, Tim, because just before we hopped on, you were like, yeah, you just got to do it, right? You can't like
Yeah.
act like, especially in a startup like we're in, you just got to dive in. Like you're using Zoom right now, which is not ideal, but let's just do it on Zoom until we can find a solution that's work for these kinds of meetings.
Very cool. So my RevOps journey. I've been an operator kind of builder, as I've been saying. I've been at a couple companies that have been in hyper growth mode, like MakerBot, Latch.com before it went IPO, Wix.com, which is that website builder that you probably all have heard of. I was running director of marketing over there as well. And then got back into the startup game. So now I'm here at Marvin. So one of the biggest problems that I solved coming into Marvin as like my first get-go, and like where Coefficient really kind of came into play, was what's happening in my marketing funnel today, right? And that's just like a key question that I think being able to bring in multiple data points, being able to structure that data, being able to then transform that data has been a very big asset of mine that I've applied across multiple different projects and use cases. And again, all that was done repeatedly because of some of the features that Coefficient provides, with scheduled data pulls, as well as drop down formulas, which is like my little tip and trick at the end. But next up in automation, I think for me, in a business standpoint, an interesting area is going to be around revenue automation, right? So being able to automate a lot of the back end processes that businesses are having as it equates to maybe commissioning. I believe that was on one of the other use cases that Hannah and team put together. So that automation bit and combining data, manipulating it, and doing it at speed is definitely something where I see a lot of industry and vendors popping up. But at home, we were joking about this one before we hopped on the call with everyone, but I would love for something to turn over my laundry. One of our bigger family pain points is we're busy throughout the day. We throw a load of laundry in there, and next thing you know, you pick up and it's been in there for 8 hours and it's wet laundry. And so, do you rewash it? Do you just put it in the dryer? What do you end up doing? So, ultimately, I rewash it.
Oh, I don't know. I think I just put it in the right here right now, and this is going to remind me because it always ends up. It's always like magically the evening, and I'm like, man, I started that at like 8 a.m. Wait, thanks for the reminder.
We need like Nvidia to develop a robot. I saw them developing some robots earlier that were doing some cool stuff. I need one to take the laundry here and move it up here.
Yeah.
All right. So not fun stuff. Like back to the use cases that we mentioned, right? The big one we're focusing on today is around our account user dashboard, and that's going to be a lot of what I'm showcasing today. But I hinted towards a handful of other things that we use Coefficient for that are actually very crucial, important. One of them I mentioned is that marketing data model. So on day one of coming into Marvin, one of like my tasks was to like basically understand how the funnel is performing. And that funnel doesn't just go from like, MQL to SQL, right? Or lead to MQL. It goes all the way end to end. Like how much traffic are you getting? What are the leads coming in? Where are those leads coming from? How are the conversion points between the different stages that you have? In some cases, the business is not always built out fully to have funnel definitions. And so how do you then leverage CRM data where definitions aren't built in, or repeatable, right? You still need to be able to measure things. And so one of the first projects that I took off and worked on with Carrie, obviously here too as well, is understanding, what is the baseline today in the marketing funnel, right? Being able to understand how free trials are doing for us. That's one of our big motions that bring people in. How's demo doing? How are trade shows doing? How are all these other activities that we're investing and spending time into? What's the results of some of those activities, right? And in leveraging Coefficient, I was able to actually build out that data model, and start to combine data with different data sources and actually start to now get into like, oh, I've kind of built a little bit of a data warehouse situation inside Google Sheets and like put Looker Data Studio, which is a free visualization tool, on top of that to then start to actually visualize that data. Otherwise, we'd kind of be stuck siloed in our different CRMs, data looking at different points. Now we have more of a unified view across a couple of different scenarios, all because we're pulling data in on schedules, able to transform that and then bring that into a visualization too as well.
I feel like, Tim, I've been hearing that more and more often with people talking about how they're using like Looker, Power BI, Looker specifically, obviously, as the free Google Sheets connector. So the little hack to use that is to just have your data live in spreadsheets with Coefficient, a lot cheaper than paying for multiple source connections in Looker and can absolutely just be free.
Yeah. I mean, I've gone through it when I was at Wix. One of the first projects that I built there too is very similarly like, hey, but like we ended up having the budget, so we brought in like actual Looker. We had Snowflake. I had an ETL tool. I had resources to all support that. The cost of that project was north of, just on technology alone, close to 100K, right? Like what we're doing here within Coefficient and Google Sheets, et cetera, is down to like a couple grand, right? Like obviously there's like Google Sheets and everything that's like company cost. I don't equate
Yeah.
that, right? That's a little bit,
Yeah, of course.
but yeah, we're on a much more cost affordability, and flexibility too is huge with that. Not being able to be relying upon other resources to execute has been pretty big for us there.
Don't always have a data team, and even if we do, we might not have time to get on their backlogs.
Yeah, we actually don't have a data team here at Marvin. So like in a lot of ways, like for us, it's myself. CRO gets into the weeds and builds some data, and but otherwise, yeah, just a few of us.
Do you feel like if you wouldn't have been able to do this, like, they would have been like, "Well, I guess we need a data person?" Like, you feel like maybe you're the reason you don't have a data team yet?
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways, that is obviously a skill set advantage, I think, in coming into, startups and having that data background that I've been in like doing data and reporting stuff like as part of demand gen since, the My MakerBot days, which is my early career. And learning that up and then carrying that with me has just only brought value to myself. And I think the value that I can bring to the organization. And in a lot of ways, like that's also dependent upon the tech stack you have. But if it also wasn't for Coefficient, I probably would have been asking for more budget and more money, which might have been denied because of the costs, etc. So, yeah, it's a very interesting topic, but one where for sure. The last one here before we get into the account dashboard is like the data transformation and write backs on a day-to-day basis. Like we have customers coming in through our sign up page. We have customers coming in through our marketing funnel too as well. We have data that's sitting in a Postgres database that ultimately is not connected to any part of our other systems. And so ultimately, if we want to start to bring in and understand, for example, we have users at Microsoft that might be on multiple teams. So they might be on multiple instances. What if they start changing those instances? What if you wanted to start to market to them or understand which accounts are having the heaviest activity? All this data has been sitting siloed off. We can use Coefficient to pull that data and then clean our CRM on a more repeatable basis because I'm able to get more live actionable data from our Postgres database to actually then say, oh, this person's now part of this team. Let's move them to that instance. Or, their role went from a viewer to an admin. Like I want to know that because we want to market to admins, differently potentially to viewers. And that's like more of a customer success use case. But if we don't have that ability of piping data and then structuring it, joining it, and writing it back to CRM, we'll be doing custom integrations between our database potential, or using a more expensive tool to build those integrations and in pipelines, right? But with Coefficient, we're actually able to pull in the data from HubSpot, pull in the data from our database, mesh it together, and then write it all back. And there's many, many use cases for that, but it ultimately has been like super powerful for me to have Coefficient just like as a tool like that, because otherwise you're downloading data, it's static, you're manipulating it, you're importing the data manually, and then after you do that, it's stale, which that you have to do it again at some point. But with Coefficient, that's a more scalable and repeatable process. So our customer health score dashboard is something that we've all done before. I think that was another use case you guys talked about. That was huge. Our customer success team now can do customer health scoring with actual product usage data across all of our customers. It writes back to HubSpot, it syncs to Salesforce, and they have dashboards. And I was able to do that literally in a day's worth of work, more or less, because of the existing infrastructure that we have today.
Doesn't it make you feel so good? Makes me feel so good when I can do something quick. There was actually one of our other users, I don't know if you saw, he mentioned with this customer health score, like his CS team is still like, what the heck does that mean? I don't know what that number means. So he uses our like GPTX functions to give a summary and actually write that back too. To where right by the score, it's like, why is this score? Like what data is it? Like what data is affecting this the most? I actually created a like mock video of that for this week for LinkedIn. So it was fun to build. I like built it so quick. I was so proud of myself.
There you go. Yeah, and like you said, the speed is important because there's so many other things that we want to be doing within our day-to-day jobs, especially if we're multifaceted. So it's something that yeah, I want to get into that AI stuff. That's like my like wish list, like focus more on that. Because the team's starting to ask for it too as well.
Cool. I'm excited to jump into your free account dashboard.
Yeah. So free account stuff. Our main goal here is, we get a lot of free accounts that get created within Marvin, right? And so like, what do you ultimately then from a go-to-market motion do with that data, right? So there's a handful of things. We're not fully PLG, so you still have to talk to a salesperson in order to ultimately, make the move to a purchase plan. You can have a free plan, but it's limited in terms of files and all that other stuff, right? Too. So if you're really going to be a power user of Marvin and you want to buy, you're going to have to talk to a salesperson eventually. And so we had automated campaigns going out to these people on a marketing standpoint. We have sales checking in, just being a resource. We have customer success support. We had a bunch of different teams that were engaging with these users. but they lacked all the context and understanding truly who this user was, what they were doing within our product, and how they were using it, right? And so that obviously I think leads very nicely into, well, if we gave them the context, like how would that improve their ability of performing their job? And from like a RevOps standpoint, yeah, I'm like, absolutely. I want to make sure that, the SDR team that we have, the sales team is empowered enough to see that, hey, somebody's really enjoying our AI functionality within our product or not, right? Like maybe they're missing some key milestones or points within their journey that we can do better for education. And those SDRs can help provide that education or documentation or training, et cetera. How can we assist that journey into ultimately getting them to find the value of Marvin? The data was sitting in our database, right? Like there was nothing that was already structured today. Even if we use some of our database tooling, the sales team doesn't have access to any of that stuff, right? Like that's like very technical products, and in a lot of ways it was all SQL based, right? And the sales team doesn't know SQL, right? And if they did, I mean, like bonus to that, but it's ultimately not probably what they're here for, right? They're here to sell. So we embarked on using Coefficient. We tied it with Google Sheets, obviously, in Looker Data Studio. We piped in Postgres and ultimately extracted that data into Google Sheets, manipulated it, and then performed a whole visualization dashboard that we could then share with the sales team to then ultimately perform their outreaches with some personalization too as well. So that's a high level project, and we can definitely dive in a little bit deeper here into each points of that. So like I mentioned a little bit here on the pain points that, yeah, data was siloed off into the database. You really have to know SQL to know anything to get with the data. Access was limited for the team. Budget, we talked about budget earlier too as well. That's still always a big thing for us. And with our company is like, how can we squeeze the most out of our tech stack, our infrastructure, what we have today without overly investing in tools and technology. And we had Coefficient already on board. And so it's just an easy, natural progression to say, hey, I can do this with what we have today without increasing costs at all. The solution to our whole problem, I hinted toward this, creating a lo-fi, basically data warehouse inside Google Sheets. I pulled multiple different data sets. I'll show that in a little bit. We used the Postgres connector from Coefficient to pull in. I wrote some SQL queries, pulled that data in on a set schedule into Google Sheets, did some transformation on that data, and then ultimately then started to visualize that inside Looker. So the outcome is, yeah, the sales team engages with this dashboard on a more regular basis. I provided within that dashboard the ability for them to use filterization to find specific users or specific team IDs that they might want to look into. You get to see like the whole performance, honestly, of all those free accounts over time. That was kind of like the added benefit. Like we started with like, hey, let's give sales a tool, a visualization dashboard that they can better understand things. Well, the whole business actually got to understand things a little bit better too as well. And that's just the nature of bringing visibility of data to the stakeholders across the organization, is that, yeah, this was a very pinpointed, we want to help with sales personalization outreach, but it duplicated with telling the entire team, hey, here's how people are using our different products. Here's the type of different people using our products. And one of the interesting things that I end up bringing in that you'll see a little bit of is like more about the free accounts that we're bringing in, combining HubSpot data. None of that data lived in our database today in combined view, right? And so being able to look at different segments, look at maybe different job titles, that data point like didn't always exist, but it existed in HubSpot. Well, bringing that into the data model, we're actually able to join that into it and create more context to a lot of these things. And so the outcome for us was definitely a big win. It's something, like I said, we still use today, and didn't increase our storage costs and didn't increase any visualization costs either, because we're using Looker Data Studio. So this honestly, for me, like the best feature I've ever seen, this is just my personal unbiased opinion, is the ability for Coefficient to write down any formulas in your Google Sheet tabs. So like I've been managing data models in Google Sheets for a long time now, and the biggest pain I've always had is I can get the data coming into the Google Sheet, then you always had to drop down your rows. You always had to make sure your formulas were adding up, and like it's prone to human error. You might forget it one day, this or that. And it just never was a fun process. It never made reporting and doing things in Google Sheets flexible and scalable. This feature alone to me was just like one of the biggest wins, because I could trust that the data would actually be dropping down when I added new rows to it. And it brought in that scalability. And honestly, if it didn't have it, then I think for me, coefficient wouldn't be as powerful or scalable. And it's just that small tweak that just whoever created that feature, whoever thought of that, I just always want to praise them for it because I'm sure you could write macros for it, but that gets beyond me. And then it's just like, no thanks, right?
We'll do that for you.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think our executive team, they're just so first principles thinking, and of course, they're executives. They use spreadsheets too, right? That like it was literally one of. I mean, I don't think our product ever didn't have it, even in the very early stage.
Right. That's awesome. So what does that all start to really look like? So I mentioned the Postgres import. So you're just seeing some example querying. Like for me, this interface though is like amazing that I could see across the entire database, look at the different data models. Like I've used more advanced tools than this that costs a lot more money. This is like extremely powerful for me, being able to preview the data before you bring it into it. You can use AI to write a query too as well if you want to, or do more simple things, which is also pretty powerful. But ultimately, we made multiple of these queries to pull the data in on a set schedule, and then we would push it into various tabs. So I mentioned that we're combining HubSpot data, some user data, et cetera. This is one of my example workbooks. I have multiple, like this model for me is like I have multiple workbooks that solve for different things, like the customer success dashboard, for health scoring, et cetera. The product usage dashboard is this one, and then my HubSpot data model is a whole nother one. But you see each tab here in the bottom is a different coefficient data pull. So I'm pulling HubSpot companies, contacts, user events, and then Marvin users and plans. Again, that all pulls into the one workbook for me to then ultimately then sync into Looker Data Studio as a data source. And then you're seeing here, I'm within Looker Data Studio, I have multiple different data models on the right, which again are all data that is being populated by coefficient on set schedules, defined by set columns and criteria, and ultimately creating me that like mini micro, like lo-fi database that I've been talking about. You're getting a little tease into some of the visualizations that we do here, but in part, like I said, I wanted to make sure that the team had the ability of using filterizations, being able to really leverage this as like a full tool asset. And then you're seeing here some like HubSpot data, Salesforce data that's pulling in company segment data. We have some jobs to do on enrichment of company size. And I think I saw that one really cool, Hannah, you posted on LinkedIn, like using AI to help get you company size. Well, yeah, that'll help me drastically in this case because we don't always have company size data available. And then HubSpot did that fun thing of degrading or sunsetting their company size data. I don't know if anybody else is on HubSpot right now, but that's a big miss. You got to go buy Breeze now for a lot more money, and now you can use coefficient and AI stuff, and that'll hopefully solve for you. That's the last slide there, I think. So there's some more I can probably show if people want to dive into it, but at the crux of it, I think the big part for me is just really around the structuring of the Google workbooks, different queries, being able to manipulate that data in Excel and bring it into a visualization tool.
Was there ever any time when you started to build this? Like, how did you make that decision to build your, like, visualizations in Looker instead of in your spreadsheet? Because obviously it could go both ways, right? Is it because of kind of your user experience and or ability to build faster in Looker as far as, like, drop downs and selections and everything go? Like, super curious about that.
Yeah, I mean, what I gravitated towards was trying to like, I mean, I was a Looker, like actual Looker user for years. And so I kind of always liked how that product would allow you to use like data modeling. Looker Data Studio is definitely not the same in so many ways. And like that was me just kind of experimenting around, but you can still do more scalable data model transformations. Like I can create custom dimensions and measures inside Looker Data Studio on top of the raw data set. And so my like initial thought was I'll try to keep my data as raw as I can in Google Sheets so it like really feels like a database table. And then from there, I'll make transformations potentially just in the BI tool so that like aggregations like win rates, close rates, et cetera, right? Like those are taking multiple columns or raw, right? And then it's like, that's not scalable. I just need to now take that measure and I can use it, include it anywhere. And it's all based upon that Google Sheet. So like that principle is what I gravitated towards. And I'm definitely feeling some pain in Looker Data Studio 100%. So I'm always kind of like thinking about what's next Is it still Looker Data Studio? Is it, I know like Coefficient, you guys have a bunch of dashboarding stuff too as well to bring into it. So that's something that's kind of like a question mark for me a little bit, but that was the original premise.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like you are used to it and you like to do your transformations there. It's just
Yeah.
kind of preference at that point. But also in some cases, I think a lot of people, what I hear is, they build especially dashboards, they're building for their stakeholders, right? And whatever they prefer is really where they want to build. Like executives really like to be in spreadsheets in a lot of instances. But if it's your like CS reps and sales reps in here, like that feels more comfortable for them probably than like dropping down here and want like simplicity. So yeah,
And this data
you and your
is,
team.
is not in CRM. So like I'm not building a Salesforce dashboard of user behavior and analytics, right? Usually like sits outside and Looker is obviously, yeah, it's an easier way of providing that visualization.
Yep. Awesome. Well, I want to give time if anyone has any questions, feel free to like unmute yourself and ask in the chat, ask in the Q&A, whatever you'd like. If there obviously the questions as well, we do have like 15 minutes left. Like if there are questions you have in general about Coefficient, feel free to, do the same thing and ask away. We'd be happy to help, whether it's something more relevant for Tim, myself, or Victoria.
Tim, out of curiosity, when you're learning Coefficient and figuring out, all the functionality and all the features, how easy was it for you to actually figure out the ideal workflow that would make you be able to combine all your data sources and put it into Looker for you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think the UX that you guys all did in your product is pretty straightforward and easy, right? Like a lot of it came for me because I already understood the underlying data that I'm pulling from in so many ways. And so it felt very natural to say, like, I want to import from, and you select like whatever data source like you're ultimately wanting to do. You automatically bring me and show me all the different objects and fields that I'm selecting things, deselected things, running filterization. All that feature functionality for me is very natural to like how I build things in CRM too, with filtering and selecting data columns. So like in my mind, yeah, it was very, very seamless. I didn't have any friction whatsoever. Scheduling jobs, having the formulas update, etc. Like all that has been for me awesome. And so no pain points that I ever experienced. And that's, I think, was such like the big benefit and asset to using Coefficient, was because it was so natural in my data flow, where in other ways it's more robust when you use like a full ETL tool and a data warehouse. Like there's just more complexity, like just the lack of that infrastructure complexity, and just literally like being in a Google Sheet, pulling the data and like having it in its raw form, like that to me was where the magic started to happen a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in a lot of ways, or like operators are being demanded to like do less with more, right? But the reality is simplicity is always better, like in every scenario. And of course, like, data pipeline tools came out and it was fancy and we all needed to like, that was the only way we could get our data, but that's not the only way today.
Yeah.
And so we do have a question. So did you implement any security in the dashboard where only relevant data is displayed for the user? Was it implemented on the Looker side or Coefficient?
Yeah, so we within like, so for compliance and security stuff, like mentioning about like PII or P2 data, et cetera, we basically, I didn't pull the data from my Postgres, right? So like in many ways, like if I wanted to exclude email address from the query, which I did, like I didn't just include it in my query. And so as part of like pulling the data through Coefficient, my Google Sheet spreadsheet was not having like email address data or any of that other stuff, right? If sales like should not have access, or anybody should not have access to any of that stuff, yeah, my guidance would probably be like to keep it on the raw data table as such. And then ultimately when you visualize it, it's just there, right? Like the data that's accessible is there. There's nothing else to do. There's some stuff you can do within Looker Data Studio, I imagine, to do on a few things, but it's not going to be like a robust security and like data permissioning rule set that I've used to been building out previously. So you kind of have to do it up front in your data pipeline.
Yeah, and I think in your scenario, it's like you're the one that has access to these like raw data tables and sheets, and like they're just saying what's available to them in Looker and
Yeah.
like they to the data. which is a great way of thinking about it. Like from a security standpoint with Coefficient in general, unless you're using like cloud data sets, we don't actually say we're not saving any of this, right? Like we're SOC 2 compliant. Like none of this is ours. Like it's yours. Um, but yeah, it's like if you don't want if there are fields and information that you don't need other folks to see outside of you, like that's a super easy way of thinking about it. Even if you aren't necessarily leveraging Looker Studio and maybe you are building in a sheet, but in the sheet that people have access to, you're just actually referencing your data tables right from another sheet.
Mhm.
So I could see it being done both ways pretty easily. So here's another one. How can we design a full funnel revenue report starting from website click to close one? How can I make my reporting employee? How can I allow my reporting employee to learn this? Um, for me, like, and I'll let you jump into to like, because I do growth, so I do a lot of these like same things. We don't have a full time operator, so it's really me, doing this, at the moment. And basically, I obviously leverage coefficient, and it's really when you think about the full funnel. So, for example, I am pulling from GA4. So I'm pulling all that initial website activity data. I'm then pulling all my CRM data from HubSpot and anything where like that is external data that's but also is not available in HubSpot, like your Facebook ads, Google ads, that's all being pulled in as well. And I can see because we do have data pipelines that do feed our product activity in HubSpot. Because we're a data company, so of course we have a lot of our engineers are very data knowledgeable and friendly. So we do have a lot of that data, but even if that product activity data did not live in HubSpot, I would then be able to pull it from our database, right? So I'm just combining stuff and actually building it inside of Google Sheets because I mean that's what we use. That's how I'm building my full funnel reporting. I even leverage our templates on the site. So if you go into any of Coefficient, you actually click import from. So say you select HubSpot. You can see there are pre-built dashboards here too that you can leverage. There are instructions on the dashboards if things don't automatically populate in the way you need, because obviously everyone has some, kind of custom CRM fields. But when you think about your like GA4 and your Google Ads templates, obviously everyone has the same data there, right? For the most part. So they're pretty easy to plug and play. And so
Have a service like that? Do you giving a service like a design our own dashboards? We are already a content user, but do you have a service like that?
So that's a great question. So we actually don't have a service where we build for you. However, I do have a few freelancers that we've used in the past that are very knowledgeable about Coefficient, all the data sources. They're spreadsheet experts as well that I'm happy to follow up with you and share their information. You can reach out to a couple of them and see essentially who would be best fit for you, but they're both great. Basically, we leverage two people. We have customers and users asking about that as well. Eventually that might be, we have these couple of people that we use and leverage, but that might end up being something that, if you're a Coefficient Power user and you're a spreadsheet expert, that eventually once we start community and it's a lot more robust, we would have, people on our site that are like Coefficient users that can just, freelance for you and us not really be the middleman at that point. But yeah,
So I am
definitely,
sending you an email about it.
it'll definitely email you
Okay.
for sure. I'll email you Coefficient course on how to customize the pre-built dashboards. I like this idea, Justin. I will definitely, if you've ever tried them, Justin, there are instructions on one tab of like how things are built and how to customize. If you've never looked at that, definitely give it a look. If that's not helpful, just ping me. I'm gonna actually just type in my personal email here for anyone to like reach out with anything like that, because that's definitely something that can feed in to our product team as well.
Another question.
Yeah. So what drove you to use Looker instead of attempting to build the dashboards and sheets, Tim? I think it's just
Yeah, we touched on this a little bit, but like I've been trying to like figure out, and again, this was just me by nature. Like my background was using more formal BI tools, but trying to find potentially like just hey, can I just use the raw data as raw as possible and then use a visualization tool to build up some more scalability across? Because I kind of found it was like, if I have one data source, can I use and repeat that data source across multiple different dashboards, right? And if I'm doing that, I would want to have like the same dimensions and structuring against that data set to be scalable across. And so like that was like my initial inclination. But by all means, I definitely think like these pre-built dashboards can get you very far in how you're doing it. Yeah, I just initially took that path from the get-go.
Yeah, just your like comfortability. I think a lot of people, like we have people doing it both ways, right? Tons of people are just building in their spreadsheet. A lot of people are pushing it in to Tableau or Looker or Power BI. And, I think it's just what's in your comfort zone, what's going to be better for your users to consume, your stakeholders that actually care about this report that you're building. Or yeah, and just what's best for your flow. The great thing is that it's super customizable, right? Like whatever flow fits you, and can be done. For us, like we're just really comfortable in spreadsheets, right? Like there are some reports that we do use Coefficient to also push into Looker, which we just started building out because we do have a couple of people that are analysts that have started to join that are building out more like high level dashboards, and we are leveraging Looker in that way. So I think it just depends on who's looking and who's consuming it. I will say before we kind of jump into your follow up question, Justin, is I don't know if you guys saw there's new functionality for enrichment, but there's also new functionality for a Sheets assistant that's currently in beta. I don't know if it popped up for you, Tim. It might just be like we're about to push it to users. But that Sheets assistant, like we have our GPT functionality where like you can click on formulas and it'll write a formula for you and you copy and paste it. You can click on charts and it'll build a chart for you and you can copy and paste it. The Sheets assistant is going to take that to the next level where it's very conversational, right? So literally like you can use the Sheets assistant and say like, I would just highlight everyone that's like a duplicate on this sheet and it will literally just do it. So it can help both like build that functionality for you, whether it's a chart, pivot, whatever that might be. But you can also talk to it and ask it what to build, just like you would talk to ChatGPT, right? So, but right there where you're working and you're not going back and forth.
That's awesome. And sorry to interrupt you, Hannah. I just came off mute. That's kind of essentially exactly what I'm doing. I'm not using the enhancement tool yet, but basically building out pivot tables off of my HubSpot data and creating charts for that. But I would like to eventually get to where it's more filterable, it's more visual. Users who are looking at it can manipulate, the chart that I have there. And, so that's why I asked those questions. I
I
appreciate it.
think, yeah, and I think, Justin, I think a lot of that, like, obviously, people like Victoria and Frank on staff, like, they can build out whatever you could possibly think of in a sheet, including all those filters, which you'll see in a lot of our templates. So that is kind of interesting. I think those more advanced ways of consuming the dashboard is kind of that piece that we're missing. We do have a template that I'll share out just in the follow up for everyone that is basically a bunch of different like examples of fancy charts you can build that you can kind of pull and plug and play on your own data. So it seems like with this audience that might be useful. So I'll definitely share in the follow up.
Thank you.
Then more directly, Looker Data Studio is free. If you have a Google account within your company, anybody can get access to the data as long as you share it. It's the same permissioning as Google Documents, Google Sheets, all the fun stuff. So that's the benefit of Looker Data Studio. But then there's like Looker, which is like Vision BI tool, and those are going to be paid seats, lots of money, connect to a database, all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's again, like that's why I love that it's so flexible. It's like you can use Looker Data Studio. The Google Sheets connector's free, and you're just using your raw data and keeping that live with Coefficient. And yeah, the seats are also free for visualization. So it's like, yes, it's not full on Looker yet, but it's that in between that gives you simpler visualizations if that's where you prefer to build and feel more comfortable building. I'm really happy people jumped in and asked questions along the way. I hope it was helpful. We will follow up with the recording as well as kind of a couple of the resources that I mentioned. So, yeah, feel free to follow up to that email if you have any further questions. Thank you so much, Tim, for joining and sharing
For having
knowledge and excitement about what you're building. It's just fun to be able to build as fast as you want to build and can think up of things that are going to help your team. So,
Absolutely.
appreciate you sharing.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Bye.